Wisdom for Winners, Volume 3 is an official publication of the Napoleon Hill Foundation, written by Jim Stovall. I'm your narrator, Rich Germain. The Foreword. Perhaps you are one of the millions of people who have enjoyed the 30 books written by Jim Stovall over the years. You may have even watched one of the movies that were made from Jim Stovall's books. Jim's best-selling book, The Ultimate Gift, with over 5 million copies sold, was one of the books made into a movie. The Ultimate Gift movie grossed over $110 million. And perhaps you've read the first 2 editions of Wisdom for Winners. If so, you know the wit and wisdom that awaits you in this 3rd volume, and you won't be disappointed. When Jim Stovall writes a column on wealth and life, he does so with authority. Jim Stovall's Wisdom for Winners is a collection of columns that millions of people have read over the years. His wisdom and experience on a particular subject provide a great amount of credibility to his writings. Even though Jim has written several articles on overcoming adversity, perhaps for those who do not know his background, a little personal information is worth knowing. Jim aspired to be an NFL player, and he had the mental and physical capabilities to be a success. Also, Jim was a heavyweight Olympic weightlifter, but his plans took a serious challenge. While attending Oral Roberts University, Jim was diagnosed with macular degeneration, which led to him becoming blind. Tutored by his girlfriend, Jim graduated. Most people going blind would just give up and seek government assistance. Not Jim. He told his dad, who was an employee of Oral Roberts University, that he wanted to work for himself. Jim's father introduced Jim to Lee Braxton, a large financial contributor to Oral Roberts University. Jim was fortunate to be introduced to Braxton, as he was a great example of overcoming adversity and founder of many successful companies, including a bank. Lee Braxton was also a close friend of Napoleon Hill and delivered Hill's eulogy when he died in 1970. Braxton had used the principles found in Napoleon Hill's book, Think and Grow Rich, and not only learned them, but took action. Braxton introduced Jim Stovall to Think and Grow Rich, which helped him become successful in financial and personal matters. You will certainly be rewarded for reading Jim Stovall's columns on the value of wealth. Learning is a lifelong process. Mastering your time, doing your best, looking for opportunities, what is important in life, and many other articles found in this volume of Wisdom for Winners. While Jim's columns often provide financial advice, his columns also cover important topics such as what is important in life. Jim gives advice on giving that creates a legacy for the giver. Jim tells us that while budgeting our money and making investments can benefit our family, it can also put us in a position to help others. A favorite quote of mine from Stovall's The Millionaire Map, published by Sound Wisdom, simply states, "Never accept a map from someone who has not been where you want to go." If you would consider that simple statement and the good advice behind it, it could make the difference between you being successful or just being one of the majority of people who are not. Jim also wrote a book titled The Financial Crossroads, The Intersection of Money and Life, co-authored with Timothy J. Maurer, a certified financial planner. Jim reminds his readers that being motivated is useless if you do not know what to do. Knowing what to do is useless unless you are motivated to act. Jim Stovall writes from his personal experiences. For example, Jim has provided 500 scholarships for students attending Oral Roberts University. Jim has made many contributions, such as the articles you are about to read. Jim gave his many columns to the nonprofit Napoleon Hill Foundation to raise funds to provide scholarships for the University of Virginia's College at Wise. The Napoleon Hill Foundation also does prison work and has worked to make the success principles available around the world to make the world a better place in which to live. I hope you enjoy the book, One Column of Wisdom at a Time. Steve Forbes, publisher of Forbes magazine, calls Jim one of the most outstanding men of this era. The Foreword by Don M. Green, Executive Director of the Napoleon Hill Foundation, Board Member of the University of Virginia Wise, and President of the University of Virginia Wise Foundation. Chapter 1. Truth and Understanding. Mother's Day and Every Day. Each year as Mother's Day approaches, I reflect on the impact my mother has had and continues to have on me. This year, my thoughts are also drawn to a special mother who impacted her family and is now impacting the world. As a novelist, TV and movie producer, as well as a platform speaker, I am always looking for great stories that will inform, educate, and inspire. As the old adage states, sometimes truth is stranger than fiction. Each of my 30 books, the various screenplays I have written, resulting in 4 movies and hundreds of my weekly columns, including this one, have been dictated to a talented colleague named Dorothy Thompson. Dorothy, in addition to being the best editor and grammarian in the business, has the patience and temperament to work with me when I'm attempting to be creative. Several years ago, Dorothy received the alarming phone call that her elderly mother's health was failing. Dorothy immediately made the trip to another state to savor the last few days of her mother's life. In a conversation between Dorothy and her mother during that difficult but poignant time, Dorothy's mother, whose name was Joy, told Dorothy of a box on the top shelf of a closet in her home. After Joy passed away, Dorothy and her sister took the time to fully examine the contents of that box. It was revealed that throughout her life, Joy had been a prolific and talented poet. Dorothy shared some of her mother's poetry with me, and as a writer myself, I was both amazed and envious of the quality and breadth of Joy's life's work. After I reviewed the entire collection, I asked Dorothy and her family's permission to tell her mother's story and share her incredible poetry with the world. The result has been released in a unique and impactful book. You can get a free sample of Joy's work and learn more about this amazing story by visiting discoveringjoy, that's JOYE.com. Beyond the book, my hope is to turn Joy's life and her work into a movie. It's one of those stories that if I had simply made it up and put it in a novel or a screenplay, my publishers and the movie studios would have laughed aloud as they promptly deposited it in the trash. To most people who knew Joy Kanellakos when she was alive, she was a good and decent person, but they were unaware of the hidden treasures inside. As you meet Joy through the new book and experience her transformational work, my hope is that you will plumb the depths of your own spirit and explore the treasures inside of you. If you're looking for a wonderful gift for your mother or something to share with someone who has lost their mother, I hope you'll remember Dorothy's mother. As you go through your day today, remember Mother's Day is celebrated once a year. Mothers are celebrated every day. Today is the day. The Power of Applause. In addition to my work running a television network, writing books, making movies, and writing weekly columns, several times each month, I get to speak at an arena event, convention center, or corporate meeting somewhere in the world. There are many things I enjoy about public speaking, including getting to connect with a live audience, enjoying instant feedback, and getting to meet people as I sign their books or take photographs. One of the elements of a huge arena event I had never understood before experiencing it myself was the overwhelming power of having thousands of people applaud for you. It causes you to want to be better, try harder, and give more. Recently, I read a story about the famed entertainer Jimmy Durante. At the end of World War II, many top performers were donating their time to entertain troops returning from the battlefields around the world. Durante was scheduled to perform for a group of wounded soldiers at a military hospital, but due to a scheduling conflict, Durante was forced to tell the commanding officer he only had 5 minutes before he had to catch a train for his next performance. The commanding officer for the post was determined to make the best of a difficult situation, so he went onto the stage and introduced Jimmy Durante. Durante bounded onto the stage with his infectious energy, told jokes, and played a couple of his quick songs that he had made famous as a vaudeville performer. At the end of 5 minutes, he took a bow to thunderous applause. The commanding officer who was standing behind the curtain was surprised when Durante didn't leave the stage, but launched into another series of jokes and songs. The crowd of wounded soldiers was overwhelmed when Jimmy Durante finally left the stage in complete exhaustion after performing almost 2 hours. The audience showed its appreciation by giving Jimmy Durante a thunderous standing ovation. Backstage, the commanding officer asked Durante why he had continued performing and missed his train. Durante smiled and said, "It was the applause that did it." Apparently, the commanding officer looked bewildered, so Durante parted the curtain slightly so they both could see the crowd continuing to stand on their feet and applauding Durante's performance. The commanding officer was still confused until Jimmy Durante pointed out 2 soldiers on the front row. One of the soldiers had lost his left arm during the war, and the soldier sitting next to him had obviously had his right arm amputated. These 2 soldiers had apparently discovered that if they sat next to one another and combined their efforts, they could express their appreciation by applauding. Durante said, "Trains come and go every hour, but an experience like that you get once in a lifetime." While they may not be singers, comedians, or performers, the people in our lives need applause. Whether it's your friend, a family member, or a coworker, catch them doing something well and let them know how much you appreciate it. As you go through your day today, remember the power of applause works whether you're giving it or receiving it. Today is the day. Pride and perspective. People around the world have admired Muhammad Ali as a person and as a champion for decades. Ali took his talent as a boxer and became a worldwide media icon. Anyone who ever saw Ali fight or heard him interviewed probably heard him loudly declare, "I am the greatest of all times." In more reflective moments, Muhammad Ali admitted that his statement was designed to bolster his own confidence while creating doubt and fear in the minds of his opponents. You and I have to strike a delicate balance between confidence and conceit. Hillel the Elder was a Jewish leader during the reign of Herod, before the time of Christ. He said, "If I am not for myself, who will be? But if I am only for myself, who am I?" We all need to be fans of ourselves and our work while applauding the greatness in everyone and everything around us. I'm in the television business, and our industry lives and dies on rating points. These points determine how many people are watching a particular program at a specific time. These rating points are broken down into every conceivable demographic group, making it statistically possible for everyone to be rated number 1. While one network may boast they're number 1 among adult males, the competing network may be leading among females over 55, and still another network may boast they are top-ranked among left-handed Eskimos or some other absurd claim. I believe it is important for you and me to always have something fixed in our minds for which we can be very proud while being mindful of other things in our personal and professional lives that need improvement. My late great friend and colleague, Coach John Wooden, often told me that you must guard against repeatedly practicing the thing you do best while ignoring the thing that needs your effort and attention. If you could celebrate the things that you do well and keep them in perspective as you practice the areas that need improvement and relish your progress, you will become a champion at your chosen field. Among any group of boxing experts or historians that might discuss the best fighter of any era, many will agree that Muhammad Ali was indeed the greatest of all time. As you go through your day today, become your own best fan and constructive critic. Today is the day. Talking and listening. I remember as a young child being told by my parents and grandparents that I had 2 ears and 1 mouth, so I should listen twice as much as I talked. The fact that they had to repeatedly tell me this probably indicated that someday I would become a professional speaker. We all need to listen, not only to what's being said, but to how it's being said and to what's behind the words. There's a big difference between hearing, listening, and truly understanding. I think it's interesting that the words listen and silent contain all of the same letters. My late great friend and colleague, Dr. Stephen Covey, often said, "Seek first to understand, and then to be understood." Dr. Covey recognized that in any conversation, debate, argument, or discussion, having both parties talking at the same time is counterproductive. He taught that you must first understand the other person's position and be able to articulate it to their satisfaction before you should begin to make your own point. Ironically, I have found that when I practice this wisdom of Dr. Covey's, there is often very little difference between my opinion and the other person's. Somehow the process of understanding someone else's words and the thoughts behind them allows us to reconsider our own position and discover a middle ground that had not previously been obvious. As a blind person myself, people often ask me if my hearing is improved. Doctors have assured me that the acuity of blind people's hearing does not improve, but their listening skills become very acute. Just as there are things you might see but overlook, there are things we hear that we do not allow to come into our consciousness. Listening to others not only shows respect, but it gives us an opportunity to understand, learn, and create consensus. Oftentimes, arguments, debates, or disagreements have more to do with semantics than reality. People fight to have everyone understand and agree with their description or verbiage surrounding an issue more than the position on the issue itself. In order to create harmony and consensus, we must give up the need to be right. As long as we divide the world into right versus wrong, we force there to be a winner and a loser. Anyone who has a significant other in their life knows that you can win an argument and walk away a loser. Listening is a skill, an art, and a science. It is one of the critical elements of success. As you go through your day today, commit to listen, hear, and understand. Then decide whether or not you have anything to say. Today is the day. Contentment, comparison, and complacency. Much of what we seek as we strive for this thing we call success is actually contentment. Contentment is an elusive and complex state. To be content, we must accept things as they are, but not necessarily accept the current condition as a permanent situation. Contentment comes only when we judge ourselves in light of who we know we should be and can be. There is never any comparison involved in contentment. Contentment cannot be achieved if we compare ourselves to what other people do or what they may have. I find many unhappy people around the world failing in an attempt to reach someone else's goal. Only you can determine who you are and where you want to be. While there is no comparison in contentment, there is also no complacency. Being content with where we are does not mean we are satisfied to stay in our current position. If you are taking a road trip from your home to a destination 200 miles away, as you reach the halfway point, you will have traveled 100 miles. You may be very content with your progress thus far, as long as you don't compare it to your destination or become complacent and accept your journey half-traveled. Your academic performance as a fifth grader may have been judged exceptional, and therefore your teacher gave you an A on your report card. If you compare yourself to students who didn't perform as well, you might become complacent and stop studying hard and doing the things it took to achieve an A on your report card. If you're performing as an A-level fifth grader when you arrive in the 10th grade, you will likely receive an F on your report card and fail the course. We must find a balance between determining who we are and where we are without comparing ourselves with others or becoming complacent and accepting our current status. Learning is a lifelong process, which is why I believe the graduation ceremony is called a commencement. A commencement means the beginning of a process, not the end. If you had studied computer science and had become a leading authority in the world 10 years ago, or even 5 years ago, you could have achieved many things. But if you compared yourself to less accomplished people at that time and became complacent, your 5-year-old computer skills would be totally obsolete today. The great mountaineer Sir Edmund Hillary had many failed attempts to reach the summit of Mount Everest. He felt each of these expeditions had achieved a certain level of success that he knew would eventually culminate in his reaching the top of the world. He became famous for giving speeches to raise money between his various attempts to climb the mountain. On each occasion, he would stand in front of a giant mural of Mount Everest, and as he closed his remarks, he would turn and speak directly to the mountain, proclaiming, "I will eventually succeed, because you can't get any bigger, and I can." As you go through your day today, be content with where you are without comparing yourself to others or becoming complacent about the future. Today is the day. Books and People. My late great friend, mentor, and publisher Charlie Tremendous Jones was fond of saying, "You will be the same person you are today 5 years from now, except for the books you read and the people you meet." When I first heard Charlie say this 2 decades ago, I thought it was significant. Today, I know it to be true. Therefore, I wanted to take this opportunity to introduce you to 2 of my books. The Ultimate Life novelization, which is the book version of the 20th Century Fox movie based on one of my novels, is now available. You can find it on Amazon. Just type in The Ultimate Life novelization. This is both the sequel and prequel to The Ultimate Gift book and movie. It will reintroduce you to some old friends, show you where they are going, and reveal where they have come from. And in case you missed the first and second compilation of my weekly columns put out by the Napoleon Hill Foundation, look for Wisdom for Winners, A Millionaire Mindset, and Wisdom for Winners Volume 2. If you ask top achievers in any field to give you a list of books that should be read in order to generate success, some of the titles will vary, but virtually every list will have a book from Napoleon Hill. I am very proud to be associated with the Napoleon Hill Foundation and very grateful for readers around the world who read my columns each week for creating a demand for a compilation of these weekly efforts in books. As the best-selling author of 30 books with millions of copies in print, I'm embarrassed to tell you that when I could read with my eyes as you are reading these words, I don't know that I ever read a whole book cover to cover. But after losing my sight and discovering the National Library for the Blind with its audiobooks along with a high-speed player, I'm pleased to report that I read an entire book virtually every day. I gave the keynote speech for the Library of Congress's National Convention that included all the librarians from the National Library for the Blind. I told them how those books changed a scared young blind person into a successful entrepreneur, platform speaker, columnist, movie producer, and author. I'm excited that the process has come full circle, and my books, The Ultimate Life novelization, Wisdom for Winners, and Wisdom for Winners Volume 2 and now 3, will be offered in an audio format and made available through the National Library Service for the Blind. When we learn something, we change our lives. When we teach others, we change their lives. But when we teach people to teach, we can change the world. I hope you will continue to read my books and other titles that can make your life better. But I also hope you will share them with others as you encourage them to pass it on. In this way, we can change the world. As you go through your day today, Realize you can change the world by changing yourself through the people you meet and the books you read. Today is the day. What's in a name? When we meet a new person, the first thing they learn about us is our name. Our name by itself may not mean much in that initial meeting, but will come to mean a great deal to everyone we encounter throughout our lives. Think of Neil Armstrong, Louis Armstrong, and Lance Armstrong. They all share the same last name, but we know them for different reasons, and their names evoke different thoughts and emotions. This is true both in our personal and professional lives. In the global economy, nothing is more valuable than a good name. Periodically, the ranking of the most valuable brand names in business is released. For several years, the Apple Corporation had the most valuable corporate name in the world. One year, Google took over the #1 spot. Here are the top 10 brand names in the world as of this date: Google, Apple, IBM, Microsoft, McDonald's, Coca-Cola, Visa, AT&T, Marlboro, Amazon. Each of these names is familiar to virtually everyone. Their names may evoke positive or even negative thoughts in your mind, but each name is respected within the arena where these companies do business. Consider Amazon in the last spot on the list. They do not manufacture products or provide services other than creating a worldwide gathering place for commerce. If you were to purchase Amazon, it would cost you billions of dollars to buy, and the majority of what you would get for your purchase price would be the right to use the name Amazon. My late great friend and mentor, Coach John Wooden, was fond of telling his players, "You will be known for a lifetime of great things you do, or a momentary lapse in judgment." Your name means something to those around you. When people consider your name, they may think of you as reliable, trustworthy, and credible, or they may think of you in less flattering ways. You and I daily have the opportunity to either reinforce what our names mean to those around us or undergo an identity transformation and literally change who we are perceived to be. I'm acquainted with a man who is habitually late. Whether it's a dinner, a business meeting, an entertainment event, or church service, he will invariably arrive late. If you talk to other people about him, his tardiness will generally come up within the first few moments of the conversation. This is not a good image to create. However, this individual can change that image of himself simply by making a conscious effort to be prompt over the next 12 months. I'm amazed at how quickly you can rehabilitate your reputation. If you are known for being late and then show up on time, people will take undue notice of your promptness. It won't be long before people will be talking about it, and once they've experienced you being on time on several occasions and discussed it with those around them, it will become routine and ordinary. At this point, you will have effectively changed the image or meaning of your name. The most valuable business name in the world is Google. They simply allow you to enter any business or person's name into your computer and determine what that name means to other people and what they are saying about it. You can have a worldwide reputation, and your name can be thought of in a good or bad light anywhere in the world without you having to leave your hometown. Be aware of what your name means to others. If you are pleased with that image, nurture it. And if you're not, change it. As you go through your day today, make sure your name means everything you want it to mean. Today is the day. Dances with Wolves. For more than a decade, my weekly columns have been read by countless people around the world in hundreds of newspapers, magazines, and online publications. People from every country, culture, and walk of life partake of my weekly visits. For this reason, I try to be universal in my perspective and keep my global audience in mind. But occasionally, there's a bit of wisdom from my own backyard that I feel will be relevant to those seeking a better life anywhere around the globe. I live in the middle of the United States, in Oklahoma. If people around the world know Oklahoma for anything, it probably would involve a famous Broadway show, the oil industry, or our American Indian heritage. We have a very rich and varied Indian culture throughout Oklahoma. Recently, I had the privilege of hearing an elderly Indian gentleman tell a story his grandfather had shared with him over 8 decades ago. Apparently, this wise Indian grandfather told his grandson that there are 2 wolves that live inside each of us, and these wolves constantly fight one another. One of these wolves the grandfather described as good, noble, loving, giving, and successful. The second wolf he described as being bad, evil, manipulative, vindictive, and a failure. Upon hearing this, the grandson was reportedly prompted to ask his grandfather, which wolf wins the fight? The grandfather provided the young boy with wisdom that served him well throughout his life and can be equally impactful to you and me. In answer to the question, which wolf wins the fight, the grandfather simply and profoundly answered, the wolf you feed. As you may know, in addition to writing weekly columns, authoring books, producing movies, and making speeches, I am in the television business. In the TV industry, there are 2 diverse and opposing messages. This is what the Indians would describe as speaking with a forked tongue. The television industry on the programming side dismisses concerns about all of the violence, degrading images, and negative content as only make-believe, and assures us that it really doesn't have an impact. On the other hand, this same TV industry on the advertising side will assure you that if you will spend several $1,000,000 for a minute of commercial time, you will be able to sell multiple millions of dollars of whatever product or service you might market. As the wise Indian grandfather well knew, whatever images we feed in our minds will inevitably grow and flourish in our lives. One of the most profound psychological principles involves the fact that we become what we think about all day. As you go through your day today, commit to feeding the wolf you want to flourish and starving the one you wish to eliminate. Today is the day. Pick a lane. Due to my travel schedule, I frequently find myself in airports across the country waiting to go through the security line. I have noticed a phenomenon among fellow travelers that involves getting in a line and then observing another line moving faster. They will invariably rush over to that line and stand there until, once again, they believe that another line is better. Regularly, the people who were in the original line and stayed put get through security much faster and are well on their way to their gate before these opportunistic line jumpers clear security. You've probably noticed this same phenomenon in traffic when the car next to you at a stoplight revs their engine and races away the microsecond the light turns green. They will weave in and out of traffic and screech to a halt at the next red light, where they are predictably a few feet away from you again. While this practice may be merely annoying in traffic or at the airport, the principle behind it can be critical in our personal and professional lives. Experts and pundits often argue about the best field, career path, or business in which to be involved given current economic conditions. I'm a firm believer that people with passion in any field of endeavor can succeed better than they would in a field where they do not have passion. Therefore, it is important that you pick the right lane for your life's work. Several years ago, I spoke at a national convention for surgeons. These men and women had dedicated many years of their lives and countless hours of training to become qualified to be a physician and specialize as a surgeon. I was shocked when talking to several of the surgeons as I was signing their books that many doctors are not happy in their careers and wish they had pursued another path. This is sad, as many doctors do not even begin their practice until they are well into their 30s and often feel trapped because of their student loan debt and the years they have invested in education and training. I read that a jet airliner traveling from coast to coast across the United States will burn 80% of its fuel just to reach cruising altitude. This is true in our lives, in that most career paths or business ventures require a tremendous amount of education, training, and investment in the beginning, and then those who have endured generally enjoy reaping great returns for the time and energy they have invested. Never confuse a job with a career. A job is something you take in order to pay the bills. This is important, honorable, and necessary. However, a career represents your passion, your purpose, and the contribution you will make to our world. You must choose it wisely and well. As you go through your day today, choose your course wisely, then pursue it with passion. Today is the day. Always move forward. If you remember anything from your geometry class in school, it's probably the fact that the shortest distance between any 2 points is a straight line. Moving forward along that straight line always represents the most efficient, productive, and profitable course of action, assuming that you have picked your destination point wisely. I heard about the artwork and the design on an Australian coat of arms. There are 2 animals indigenous to Australia that appear on the coat of arms. They are the kangaroo and the emu. These 2 animals aren't too much alike, but they do share one unique characteristic. Because of the length of their tails, kangaroos cannot back up. If they want to reverse course, they have to move forward and execute a U-turn. Because of the configuration and shape of their feet, emus cannot back up and must always move ahead. The wise person who designed this particular Australian coat of arms understood that we can learn a lot from emus and kangaroos. As we pursue our passion and move toward success, there are days when the forward progress is evident to everyone around us. Then there are other days when the progress is not evident to the casual observer. This could mean that no progress was made, or it could mean that you are moving forward in ways that do not reveal themselves immediately. General George Patton often reminded his officers that he never wanted to receive any messages from the front stating, "We are holding our position." Patton believed that armies either moved forward or retreated. If you are currently stopped in one location, you must be making preparations and plans to move forward, so that there is no time wasted or energy expended that does not result in progress. If you have a goal, a dream, or a destiny in your life that you would like to reach, you should be making progress toward it today. That progress may involve taking significant strides toward those things you want to do, be, or have, or it may simply mean reading a book, meeting a person, improving your attitude, or any number of things that can put you in the right position to move forward immediately when the opportunity presents itself. My late great friend and colleague, Dr. Stephen Covey, taught a principle he called sharpening the saw. Dr. Covey told about lumberjacks working in the forest energetically, using their saws to cut down trees. These lumberjacks were paid based on how many trees they cut down in a day, so they worked very hard and consistently. However, seasoned and successful lumberjacks come to learn that there is a time when the fastest way to cut down a tree is to stop sawing and take a moment to sharpen the saw. When you consider your life's work and your goals, you are the saw. There are times you will be rapidly moving toward your goal, and there are times when you are preparing yourself for the next big flurry of progress. As you go through your day today, always be moving forward or preparing yourself for your next move. Today is the day. Entrepreneurial efficiency. There is a certain efficiency, effectiveness, and economy that comes with all entrepreneurial ventures. I'm reminded of the stories recounted by the Pilgrims who, upon arriving in the New World, began collective farming to try to feed themselves. Their thinking was that if they had one big farming operation and everyone shared the work and the harvest, it would provide the best outcome for all. I would have to admit that in theory and on paper, a collective approach, or communism, makes a certain amount of sense and has an odd appeal. However, it quite simply doesn't work. After nearly starving to death for several years, the Pilgrims, in desperation, tried another approach in which each family would farm their own land and survive or starve based on their own harvest. They found that people were willing to work harder, smarter, and more efficiently for themselves and their families as opposed to the collective community. The result was the individual families prospered, and many of them had enough surplus crops to share with families that needed help. Some might argue that this is an old world example and doesn't apply in the 21st century. Consider the entrepreneur Elon Musk, best known for his cutting-edge high-tech electric car, Tesla. Through Tesla, Elon Musk has planted the seeds that will change the transportation industry for generations to come. In another venture with his company called SpaceX, Musk replicates the lessons learned and principles proven by the Pilgrims. Space travel has been around in one form or another for over half a century. The established model involves a large rocket filled with fuel that blasts a capsule beyond the Earth's atmosphere into space. Historically, the rocket itself was designed to be disposable and would fall away in stages as the fuel was consumed and the flight progressed. Enter Elon Musk, an entrepreneur spending his own money earned from other entrepreneurial ventures. Immediately realizing that disposable rockets wasted untold millions of dollars, Musk and his engineers developed a rocket that remains intact and returns to Earth by lowering itself much as a helicopter does as it lands. Through this development, Musk can reuse his rockets, cutting costs dramatically, and make it possible for his spacecraft to land almost anywhere and be reused many times. I do not necessarily believe that Elon Musk is smarter than the many engineers and scientists around the world who pioneered and developed space travel. Musk's breakthrough comes from the advantage he gained from being an entrepreneur. Previous scientists focused on what was possible. Elon Musk and his team focus on what is possible as well as what's affordable, what's efficient, what's economical, and what is profitable. As you go through your day today, think like an entrepreneur and enjoy the advantages. Today is the day.